Alright, this is another Patreon critique from India Cruz. She's next up in line. I'm doing these all in chronological order of whoever's sending them to me. So she sent this and she has a couple questions. She said it was a quick painting, kind of a study in terms of metal, armor, lighting, and she had concerns about the realism of the metal and the placement of the arm, which seems okay to me. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. First, I'm going to start out with the things that I like that are working. So it's very clear what's going on. It's pretty good execution in terms of, hey, this is a character. It's a portrait. The person's looking at us. But I think, actually, I'll get to the crit later. But so I think I like the definition of the eyes and the nose and the mouth because it's detailed here and it's not too detailed everywhere else, so there's nothing else competing with it, so I think that's pretty good. We could probably add more detail elsewhere, but we don't need to right now. So then you have the hand is pretty well done. I think it's spaced out as a hand would look, and it's kind of difficult to do a hand in that pose because some people will be like, well, it looks like they're bending their hand in a weird way, but if you look at really old paintings, they do a lot of very interesting hand poses, so there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, let's get to the crit part. So the first thing that pops out to me is that when you zoom out, you can still sort of tell what's going on, but I think the background takes a lot of attention away from our figure. And I think it's okay to have a brighter background than your main subject, but I think it's so bright that it's distracting. So what I would do is just tone that down a little bit, make a new layer, set it to darken. I'd even make it more of a sunset, warm, golden hour kind of glow. That way it's still brighter, but it allows us to bring our attention back to our character here. And I'll lower the opacity of that a little bit. Maybe even use an airbrush and erase at the horizon a little bit. But now it kind of frames her a little bit more rather than this jarring white, almost like pretty bright contrast in the corners, and it screams for attention. Whereas like this, it kind of has a soft framing of our main character here. And then so when you zoom out, it's still, I personally think it would be a little bit more effective if we could see what's going on in her face a little bit more. So it's not the right way, there's no wrong, right or wrong way. In fact, I think what I'm about to do probably wouldn't happen in real life in terms of lighting, but so I've duplicated everything and I'm going to kick up the lights a little bit just by pushing that using levels, something like that. And I'm going to hold Alt and hit the mask, and I'm going to paint using white on this mask over here on the right. And what I'm going to do is just basically pick some areas to allow some light to come in. So now we can see her face, and it's going to cast a shadow onto the rest of her body. It wouldn't be all bright like that because we want a shadow right there, right? And it's something you could try, a pretty easy method. Call it the 1-2 punch. You just make a new layer of whatever it is that you're doing, brighten it up, and paint out the stuff. I think we'll get to the rendering of the metal in a moment. So now that we have that, what I'd like to do is tone it down. So you kind of go to one extreme and then bring it back a little bit. And I'm going to use the airbrush and use black this time onto this mask layer and just kind of have a little nice fade. So it's the brightest at the top of her head. And then it almost looks like we didn't do much of a difference, but if I turn off that layer, it's like she's in dark shadow, and now you can see a little bit more. And then of course you can take it a step further and allow yourself to make cast shadows. By using black again. So a little sharp line there. Maybe a shadow casting from the brow ridge, like that. Darker shadow under her eye. And that'll start to imply a more believable kind of contrast in terms of light situations. I'm going to go ahead and paint this and see where it goes, then I'll talk about it. Alright, maybe I got a bit carried away again. Seems to be a trend here. But okay, so as I was doing this, I was going back and forth between what I was doing and the original, and I feel like I kind of regret making it brighter because There's something about the darkness here I actually kind of like, but maybe it just doesn't read as well when it was small. But since the question was about the armor and its reflectivity, I did go ahead and make a new layer, and I sketched on top of it some more defined shapes of what armor could be like. And to do this, you can augment your kind of mental library of armors, weapons, swords, etc. By doing studies, whether it's on Pinterest, whether if you have an armor book. And I also made it this bright to kind of imply that there's a light above, and so that we can kind of read what's going on much easier. And with that, it'll show more reflections in the armor. So you have little hot spots of white, glowing stuff here and there, and it kind of, the more like reflections and hot spots and all that stuff that you have, the more kind of convincing it is. It's not necessarily perfectly realistic, but let's go back. Yeah, see, I think this is actually a really rarely done and interesting light scenario, and I think if I was to redo this again, I wouldn't make it bright from the top, but rather make it so that there's a glow coming from below, because I guess you already have that going on, and make that the dominant light happening. So I actually prefer yours compared to what I did, but to kind of convey what I wanted to say, I think it's all there in terms of the armor, the value graphics of the dark and the light against from the background, because I think the background is still a bit bright here. But anyway, I hope that answered your question, and I hope it didn't ruin your painting too much. All right, enjoy, and also I'll be posting the recording of that painting or the paint over next term's Patreon. And if you'd like one of these critiques, hopefully it doesn't get too many people doing this, because I can't do too many, right? But a couple here and there every week is not too bad. But if you'd like to get a critique on your art or your painting, your drawing, if you have questions about color, lighting, anatomy, or sketching, whatever, there is the tier on Patreon, and if you'd like to do that, feel free to check out the link in the description. Besides that, hope everyone's doing great, and see you next time. I just don't want to say click anymore.